It sounds selfish, but you cannot financially take care of others until you financially take care of yourself. Welcome to day 9 of the 12 days of money, where I teach you all the things you need to know about money so that you can be successful in 2025. Also, welcome to another Millennial video. I haven't done the original opening in so long that I feel like I have forgotten how to do it. But today is going to be a really cool video because I am going to be discussing or answering your questions from Instagram stories. So I have my phone here with me, and a couple of days ago I asked, what are some financial questions that you have that you want me to answer in a little more detail, because on Insta stories it can be very limited, and y'all did not disappoint with the amazing questions. So this video is pretty much a love letter to all my amazing IG story followers, all my amazing YouTube followers here. So let's get right into the question. So I have my first question here. Backdoor Roth IRA for people earning too much money for regular Roth, please. So I mentioned yesterday in day 8 when I was talking about the ways to get started investing as a beginner, but people really do want to learn about the backdoor Roth, and I'm going to really make it so simple for you. A backdoor Roth is not as complicated as people make it seem. It really is just opening up a traditional IRA and converting it to a Roth IRA. That's it. And I'm going to speak specifically from Vanguard because that is the platform that I have. Quite literally, when you open up a brokerage account with Vanguard, they will ask you the type of account you're opening. You would click traditional IRA, and then they would put, whatever amount. So right now, the maximum for a Roth IRA or traditional IRA is $7,000. And then there's literally a button after you contribute or when you've maxed it out that asks you if you want to convert it to a Roth IRA, and click that button and you will be taxed on the money. So if you invested $7,000 in a traditional IRA, that will be taxed when it is converted to a Roth IRA, and now you have a Roth IRA. That is called a backdoor, and that's it. It's not illegal and it is not difficult. Simple. The next question: when should children start investing? Immediately. I'm very much a put your own mask on first. So if you are investing for yourself and you are not maxing out your accounts, or you're not investing for yourself enough to be able to retire, focus on yourself first. But that does not mean that you can't have money invested for your child working for them from the moment they're born. You have a couple of different options. The first, and talked about most often, is a 529, where you can quite literally open it as soon as they are born. One of my close friends, she has contributions from her check go directly into her son and daughter's 529. So it's like literally, I think she does maybe 2 or 3% of her income goes right into that 529. And then on birthdays or holidays, you give the 529 ID or the 529 link to your friends and family, your loved ones, and they could also contribute. So I know ever since my friends have started having children, I typically will give them books and a 529 contribution, because I am an English teacher, so of course books, and I want them to have money in their future so they don't have to take out student loans. The downside that people will often say with 529s is that that money has to be used for education. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be used for education. If your child goes up and they decide that they don't want to go to college, or they don't want to go to a trade school, they want to do something different, you can pull that money out. There will be a penalty. Of course, the government got to get theirs. There will be a penalty, but you still can access that money even if the child decides not to go to college. And if they do decide to go to college, now they have a nice chunk of change where they could take far less student loans, or they don't have to take student loans at all, or they can use it to go towards books and all these other educational aspects that aren't necessarily tuition. So that is one option. The second option is you can open a Roth IRA for your child at any age as soon as they have income. Now, as a teenager, that could be your first part-time job, your first side hustle. Once you start making income, that amount up to the income, so let's say they make $7,000, then you can essentially max out that IRA. If they make $2,000, then they can invest $2,000 into that Roth IRA. So you want to be really careful when you're filing taxes and doing all of those things for your child that it does match up. So absolutely speak to a tax professional, speak to a CPA if you must, but you can start investing for your child from day one. So you can use a 529 or you can use a Roth IRA. Now I know you're saying, well, what if my child is not working? You can give them an allowance. You can do all these other things. I know, for example, if I were to have a child and I have them, let's say, in content, which is not likely, but let's say I do have them in content, or they help me film, or they help me take pictures, I can pay them money, and that money can be invested into a Roth IRA. So they would essentially be my employee of my business, and then they can invest that money into that Roth IRA. So that's when you typically will see all those videos where they're like, oh, Drake's son earned this amount of money because he drew the picture for the cover, or Blue Ivy made money because she performed. And because once they have income, you can start investing and you can open custodial accounts on their behalf. How to get the best out of a Roth IRA and 401k if you have both? I love this question. This was the first year that I maxed out my Roth IRA and my 401k, my solo 401k. Even though I have had a 403b since 2011 and I have had a Roth IRA since 2020. So once I opened my Roth IRA, I maxed it out every year because it was a more accessible number. So it started off being the max was 6,000 and now it's currently 7,000. But even I could never, ever max out my 403b, or I could never max out my 401k because I simply didn't have enough money to do so, or to do both. That doesn't mean that I didn't invest in both. So like I mentioned in previous videos, but of course I'll mention here if this is your first time here, you can also catch up with the other episodes here. I started investing $121 into a 403b. There was no way I was maxing out. At that time, I think the max was $19,000 or $19,500. There was no way on my teacher's salary I was making less than $50,000 that I was going to be able to max out the $19,000 into my 403b. But I still started small because that compound interest and the time in the market would be beneficial for me to not only reach Coast Fire, but also retire comfortably and retire earlier than traditional retirement age. Then once I opened up my Roth IRA and I was working in a company that had a 401k, I still contributed to my 401k up to the match. A little bit more than that, but I started out with up to the match. So that is what I suggest. If you do have both, you're going to invest at least to the max of the match that your employer is offering. And if your employer is not offering a match, you want to start off where you are comfortable with that amount coming out of your check. So I say start off small, start off slow, and increase anytime you get a pay increase, anytime you get a raise, so that it doesn't feel like, oh my God, it's so much money coming out, but that you get accustomed to it and it feels natural and more comfortable. Like I mentioned, I started off with 3%. When I left the classroom, I was at 12%. And then when I moved into my tech job, I started at 12%, and then I increased it to 13% as I was going forward. Start where you feel comfortable. If you can max out your Roth IRA but not your 401k, that is okay. If you can't max out either, I still recommend investing what you can from your glorious gap, so the additional income you have at the end after you've paid all your expenses, into your 403b after you've saved, and then have that percentage coming out of your 401k. So that's just how I would do it. That is just a suggestion, but you want to do it however is best that you're comfortable, as long as you're investing consistently and you are investing, period. How do I pay off debt when I'm living paycheck to paycheck? Such a good question, such a question that comes up very often, and I'm going to give the very honest, what? Is this not recording? Oh my, why are you talking like that? Hi. I'm so annoyed. I recorded a bunch of audio.
Now yeah.
No, okay. It's red today. I'm sorry.
It's just like kissing me on this camera.
Oh no, you look so handsome.
I had to take a snack break when I realized that that audio was not working the way I wanted it to, because that means all the audio in the videos I filmed before also didn't work the way I wanted to. But we proceed. So let's get back to answering these questions, shall we? As my camera flashes low battery. We're having a time today. I'm going to start over with the question of how do I pay off debt when I'm living paycheck to paycheck? What I mentioned before we had the fatal crashing of my realization of the audio is that you're going to need to first go on a money date to ensure that you understand your income versus your expenses, find any places that you can cut any expenses, and any spending leaks that you may not be aware of. And then the second and most crucial step, or really the step that's most important, is to find ways to increase your income. And that is because there's only so much that you can cut. There's only so many ways that you can budget the certain specific amount that you have that is going to work across the things that you need. So if I am only bringing in $2,000, but I have $2,500 of expenses, of course I'm going to always be living paycheck to paycheck or living underwater. If I have $2,000 in income and $2,000 in expenses, that is also paycheck to paycheck. But if I have expenses that I'm not even aware that I can lower or that I can cut, that is where I'm going to start as I find different ways that I can do specific side hustles to earn additional income to give me more breathing room to go towards paying down that debt that I want to get rid of. What do you do with your retirement money fund after you switch jobs? Such an amazingly smart and very important question. You want to roll over that account. Now, if you are going from one job that has a 401k to another job that has a 401k, it is possible that you will be able to roll over that original 401k into the new 401k as long as the accounts are comparable. Meaning if it is a traditional 401k going into another traditional 401k. If you have a traditional 401k but now you have a Roth 401k, you will not be able to do that transition or that rollover as smoothly as you would like. And so you would likely transition or roll over that old 401k into a traditional IRA. So for me personally, when I left teaching, I had a 403b that was a traditional 403b, which means it was pre-tax. I had to roll that money over into a traditional IRA that I had to open on Vanguard. And specifically because it was on Vanguard, I was able to have the check sent over directly to Vanguard. However, when I left or when I was laid off from my job that had a traditional 401k from Fidelity, Fidelity sent the check over to me and I had to then invest that money into my traditional IRA with Vanguard. So there will be different processes or different steps, but it's so important that you roll that money over from the account once you have left that job to avoid paying any additional fees and also to avoid forgetting about it, because that is so simple and that happens all the time, so that when you reach retirement age, you will have all the money that you've set aside and not any accounts that you might have forgot about that are just sitting there getting paid dust and getting charged fees. If you don't really want to get into the weeds of rolling it over yourself, you can use a free service like Capitalize that will roll over the account for you. And it's so simple and they do it for free in really quick, easy steps so that this way you're not leaving any money behind on the table. How do you determine whether to give money to family or not? My answer is pretty much always no, unless it is my nuclear family and it is money that I can afford to give away. And so I think a lot of times where that gray area, where that area of confusion happens is if I'm loaning you this money, I am going to assume that you are going to be paying me back within a specific amount of time. And that's where it can get really tricky if that family member does not pay back the money. Same thing with friends, if they don't pay back that money or if they don't pay it back in an agreed amount of time. So if I ever do decide to give a family member or a friend money, the idea or the thought behind it is pretty much that: one, this is money that I can afford to give away for good, that I don't want it back. And two, I am gifting this money. If I am unable to gift it, if the amount is too high for me to gift comfortably, then I simply say no, that I can't, and I will absolutely find or try to find different ways for them to get that money without kind of complicating or muddying up our relationship. But the easy answer or the hard, fast answer for me is that it's a no unless I can give it away. And most of my friends and family know I have that really hard boundary of not particularly loaning money. The next question says, do you have a will, trust other than ETFs, index funds? What do you invest in? So I'm going to just say it out clearly, even though the question didn't ask that. I do not invest in life insurance. I have life insurance, but I do not use IULs or any of those other popular things that people talk about, because for the most part, they're usually kind of scammy and preying on the fact that you do not know a lot about IULs and are hoping that you kind of sign on the dotted line so that they can earn their commission. So I do not do that. Outside of index funds and ETFs, I have a high yield savings account for my sinking funds, and that is the basis of everything I invest in. I do not get really fancy or complicated with crypto. I don't do any of those things. I'm a very simple investor, and I am quite risk averse. So I like to kind of go with the tried and true method of investing in index funds and ETF. As far as having a will and trust, yes, I have estate planned and I talk about estate plans in the last chapter of my book as pretty much the final spot for your financial journey where you want to land to make sure that all of your money goes to whom you want it to go to in the best possible way. A lot of people think estate planning is only for the wealthy, which is not true. Estate planning just means that you have a beneficiary on your accounts or that you have a specific trust so that, they're not being taxed in a certain way so that your money lands where it's supposed to. So yes, I do have one, but that is not what I would call an investment. It's just essentially a financial plan or financial preparation for when I am no longer here. Okay, so our next question says, how do I rebuild my retirement savings at 30? I took everything out in my 20s. So that happens often. I've mentioned before how I used some of my investments when I first opened my individual brokerage with Capital One, and then it got sold to E-Trade. And now I think it's Charles Schwab. I'm not even sure what it is now. I still sign into E-Trade. So it happens. I use my investments to buy a couch. I don't even have that couch. I'm 3 couches later. When I sold my investments, I think Netflix was Netflix investments was like maybe $200. I bought it for $90. And now Netflix is trading for, I think, $900 a share. So joke's on me. However, it is never too late to get back on the bike and keep going. So just because you took all of it out in your 20s does not mean that you cannot open a 401k now and start contributing, starting as low as 3%, 5%, whatever you're comfortable, or investing in a Roth IRA or investing in both. So definitely do not feel shame. Do not feel like you're behind or you're late. You're just starting over right now and you're in your 30s. So you still have another 25 to 30 years, depending how old you are, 20 to 30 years, I'll say, and before you reach your retirement age. So you still have time to build that nest egg back up. And because you are a bit older, you will have those catch-up contributions when you're over 50. And then you will also have a higher income, which is typically what usually happens. You'll have a higher income than when you're in your 20s. So you can invest more to kind of catch up based off of the money that you took out in your 20s. So it's not too late. Do not give up. Keep going. Start today. All right, our next question says how to best pay off credit card debt without it impacting your credit score. I'm going to link this video right here where I talk about what impacts your credit score and what are the realities and what are the myths, because I think a lot of times people have these funny notions, which is not, their fault. It's just based off of information or misinformation that's been going around. So your credit score may decrease if you pay off your credit card, but it is never a bad idea to pay off your credit card. It is never a bad idea to get rid of debt. Decreasing your liabilities helps increase your net worth. Yes, your credit score may take a few dings for these reasons, right? So it's not because you close the account. This is why these things may happen if you pay off the account, but I still suggest paying it off. There isn't really going to be much you can do to prevent that small dip if you fall into any of these categories, but a really good way to keep your credit score healthy is one, to keep your debts low, to make your payments on time. Those are the two biggest parts. That's 65% of your credit score is your credit utilization. So how much of your credit you're using, and your payment history, how much of your payments are made on time. So that 65% is a lot heftier than the rest of the 40%, which may be impacted in a small 10%, 15% kind of way. Focus on the 65. Focus on your credit utilization and focus on paying off that debt so that you will be in a better financial space than worrying about your credit score dropping by a few points. It will absolutely increase as long as you stay healthy with these other two aspects. I have 6 more questions we're going to do. I'm going to try to do them kind of lightning round, which I know defeats the purpose of this, but I don't want this video to be 45 minutes long and I want everyone's question to be answered. So we have, what's the best investment to make in your 40s? That is such a tricky question because everyone's financial circumstance and situation is different in their 40s, just like it's different in their 30s, just like it's different in your 20s. Your personal finances are definitely going to be yours. What I think is a very smart investment is to continue investing in your Roth IRA, traditional IRA, 401k, or individual brokerage, or a little bit of all 4. So you want to make sure that you're investing consistently so that when you're in your 50s and your 60s, you can retire much comfortably than if you were trying to, let's say, get into real estate or crypto. Those are awesome ways to build wealth, but you want to make sure that you have your basics covered first, especially if you're in your 40s, so that when you reach your 60s, you are all good. How important are taxes when it comes to wealth creation? Taxes are important in everything. Taxes are are important when you're a business owner. Taxes are important when you're a traditional 9-to-5 worker. Taxes are important when you're trying to build wealth, because taxes are something that you cannot get around. You will always have to pay taxes. Now you want to make sure that you're doing the really great, smart things so that you can pay less in taxes, but you are going to have to pay taxes. So I highly suggest leaning into your accountant or a professional tax person, a CPA, to help you understand your tax codes and to help you understand how to get the best deductions without doing anything illegal. I am a firm believer in staying out of prison, so I don't mess around with the federal government. I pay my taxes. I take every deduction that I can. So it might be really worth it for you to learn about what potential deductions are out there so that you can always get the most deductions. But while you're on your wealth building journey, it's really a focus on building assets and building them in a smart way while keeping your liabilities low. Is it smart to roll my car into my mortgage? So I'm going to be answering this question without much context, but it sounds like you are doing a debt consolidation, and debt consolidations are very vital or important if you have tried everything else and you are going to have a lower interest rate and a lower payment that is going to give you the opportunity to pay off the debt quicker. That is when debt consolidation really is important and really comes into play, because you want to make sure that you're not signing the line on a consolidation that's going to end up costing you more and taking you longer. So if you've tried all other avenues and you're like, this is really going to help me bring down the interest rate and bring down the amount that I'm paying monthly so that I can make additional payments and pay this off quicker, that is really smart. If not, I would highly suggest really writing out the pros and cons and seeing, is it going to be beneficial for you to roll your car payment into your mortgage, and what your bank suggests. What is your bank saying about this particular rollover? What is the interest rate going to look like? What is going to happen to your original loan? Ask all of those questions and make sure that they explain it clearly, because you don't want them trying to speed you through something that is going to negatively impact you in the future or in the long run. Our next question, how do I pay off debt, save, and have some trips every now and then? Money date, money date, money date. So you want to create a sinking fund byline in your money date template or your money date budget or wherever you write your money dates down, so that you are paying all of your expenses, you're saving, you're investing, but you're using that glorious gap. So if you have $500 left over at the end of the month, you're going to put $100 into your travel fund and maybe $200 into investments and $200 into savings, so that every single item you want to make sure you're contributing to gets a piece of the pie, gets a piece of what's left over at the end of the month, so you can still enjoy your money, but you're still also doing all the responsible things that'll help you enjoy your money down the line. Fidelity versus Vanguard, one or the other or both, please and thank you. So I have had both. I currently have Vanguard now. I've had Vanguard since 2020. I had Fidelity from 2021 to 2023. I loved and enjoyed both. There really is not too many differences. I know Vanguard right now is starting to implement some new fees that people may not like. Fidelity might be an option that you're looking for if you want to pay less in fees, but I suggest both. Look into both. You can't go wrong with either one that you use. After you have 6 months savings, Roth, 401k, bills paid, what else do you do to maximize your money and savings? So to be honest, after I've saved for the month, I've budgeted, I've saved for my future sinking funds, things I'm trying to achieve, I've invested the way I wanted. Once I've done all the responsible adult things, I use my money for fun. So I have a sinking fund where I use for self-care. I have a sinking fund for gifting. I have a sinking fund for all the fun things, just as much as I have a sinking fund for my car if anything goes wrong, a sinking fund for my house if anything goes wrong. So I want to prepare for all the things that could happen negatively that will cost me money, but I also want to prepare to have a good time with my money. So if you have done all those things that you have listed and you still have additional income left over, spend it how you want. I don't care what other financial experts are saying, or you could do this, you could do that. If you have hit your target goals for the month with your money and you have additional income left over, use it how you want. Life is short. I've saved, I've invested, I've budgeted. I'm going to go to Sephora. And last question, taking care of parents with no retirement savings and my young son, how do I get ahead financially? This is a tough one. And again, without too much circumstance, go on that money date. I know I sound like a broken record, but you do really need to have an idea of your financial landscape so you can put your mask on first before you take care of other people financially. You have to make sure that you're saving for your retirement. Then you can go in and save for your child's retirement or your child's school in the future, and then you can add into money for your parents. So It sounds selfish, but you cannot financially take care of others until you financially take care of yourself. And so to financially get ahead, right? So if you've got all three of those aspects covered, where you've got yourself covered, you've got your child covered, you've got your parents covered, if you don't have much money left behind to financially get ahead, so to invest more or to save more, that is when it's going to be, okay, well, now I have to increase my income. Whether that's job hopping, which this job market, this economy is kind of tricky, possible, doable, but tricky, where you're either going to job hop or you're going to side hustle or start a business, which are also time consuming, even though they're going to help you reach your goal quicker. So you want to really sit down with yourself on that money day and decide, is this something I can do? How can I do it? What time do I have to set aside to side hustle? What time do I have to set aside to create this passive stream of income in order to financially get ahead the way I want to, while still taking care of my parents and my child? It's a hard pill to swallow, but that really... And thank you for joining me in day 9. I hope I have answered everyone's questions to the best of my ability, and I will catch you in day 10. I can't believe we're almost done. I'll see you tomorrow.